Good day, everyone. A very warm welcome to this virtual panel discussion titled Redesigning Business in a World Transformed. This is part of the Office Disrupted exhibition running from 9th April to 13th May, organized by Paperspace Asia, supported by the Design Singapore Council. Today's session will consist of a short introduction, followed by a 40-minute panel discussion, before we end off with a Q&A session where you will be able to ask the speakers some questions. Moderating today's session, we have Juliana Mattar, founder and managing director of Motion. With her, we have here with us Ganapathi, trainer at Singapore Airlines Academy, Rachel Lim, co-founder of Love Bonito, as well as Emmanuel Bernados, general manager, F&B, Fairmont and Swissotel. Without further ado, I will now hand the time over to Juliana to kickstart today's program. Juliana, please.
Thank you, Charlotte. Excited to gain insights in the next hour from Rachel Lim, co-founder of Love Bonito, Emmanuel Bernados, general manager of Fairmont and Swissotel, and Senthilvalavan, deputy chief pilot and trainer with Singapore Airlines. They are all exceptional business leaders whose industries in retail, hospitality, and aviation have been hit and not spared at all from this exceptionally hard year we have all experienced. So, does good design matter? We are here to discuss the importance of design that shapes our businesses and how they run, how we communicate, how it molds our culture and behaviors, and what design really means. Is it in the people? Is it in the tech? Is it operations? Is it service posture? Does design really matter? Given findings in the recent McKinsey Design Index, it shows companies with better design perform higher growth of revenue with higher returns to stakeholders. So design really impacts business ROI. Resiliency and the ability to adapt and be agile. We want to discuss how these values are key differentiators that determines the success, which is the survival and the failure of a business. Is it analytical leadership, cross-functional talent, continuous reiterations, user experience, and by all means, this means physical and digital in service design. Is it in the people? We want to talk about the value of disruption and how the pandemic has brought this upon us. All of us, no one has been spared, no business has been spared. Why is it important to not get stuck in status quo? And how can design help businesses stand out from the crowd? So, redesigning business in a world transformed. Let's hear from them. Rachel, I'd love to ask you the first question. Given the pandemic, how would you describe the transformation our world is currently experiencing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Juliana, for the question. And I think, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I think I'm really excited to also be here today to learn from my fellow panelists. So I think firstly, we can all agree that we're all living in a very unique time. It's a new normal now, and there's so much changes to the way we live our everyday life, right? In the way we also communicate, in the way we purchase, in the way we work. So I think for me, right, I think the last year has been crazy, insane to just say loosely, and internally, as the organization grows also over the last year, I think we have had so much changes to the way we had to pivot our business plans, in the way we had to, be nimble as well with the incoming changes. And I think the scary thing for us, especially back then, was that, we don't know how long this will last. And we still don't know how long this will last. But I think at least for now, we are a lot calmer as well. So I think some of the things that we have learned is to really be able to, as a business, how can we ensure that we stay nimble? And at the same time, as business leaders, how can we stay optimistic and also ensure that we embrace the changes around us? I think, for us, especially in our industry, we have also seen that when businesses are not able to adapt quickly and evolve together with times, they get left behind, and it really affects the business generally, and they have to exit the market, things like that. So I think for us, I think it's important to also see how do we, not be tone deaf to what's happening with our consumers.
Yeah, so keeping aware and always constant and agile, right? Great insights, Rachel. Thank you. Senthil, I'd like to ask you, your industry has suffered a global loss of about 419 billion or more. You used to manage operating vehicles and now you train people. So what does it mean to you to design a business in such a time?
Hi, Juliana. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. It's certainly an honor to be among business leaders. You're right. When the pandemic first struck us, we had to take a foot back. We were leading the industry, and we were in a position of strength. And the pandemic rewrote a lot of those circumstances and business environment that the airline was in. And what we were doing was we were focusing on our strengths and building on that to deliver the product that we are renowned world over. But even during those times, there were a lot of opportunities that were in front of us that we just didn't have the resources to embark on these projects, these ideas. And in all reality, what the pandemic has brought to us is an opportunity. An opportunity to look at things that were there all this while, but we never explored it, we never expanded it. And that is basically what I'm doing right now. I'm expanding on an idea that many trainers have been saying for many years in my company, that we should share what we have learned to other people, other industries, other businesses, because people can do just as well. So for me, the pandemic is an opportunity, and that's why we are doing what we're doing. We're sharing the skill sets that we have honed over the years. We have learned, and we have in many ways been judged or expected out of us. And we take that and we transfer that to other industries that are as essential as transportation, like healthcare, logistics, hospitality, banking. They have certain skill sets that we can share with them, and we can share the lessons and certainly our experience. So that's where we are.
Thanks, Senthil. I'll be asking a little bit more about that later on in the hour. Emmanuel, this word hospitality, this definition must have changed for you and your organization with all that you have had to go through this year. What is transformation for you?
Has meant that we've needed to be a little more open-minded to an extraordinarily tumultuous business climate. We need people to be staying in our hotel, eating in our restaurants and drinking in our bars. Bar business has now, and nightclub business has been decimated, and licensing around that has changed remarkably. Yeah. We have had to think laterally as to other opportunities. We now at our very, very famous restaurant, Prego, inside the Fairmont Hotel, as an example. We have now created a bottle shop where you can come in and buy wine and champagne. And we wanted to be known for something a little bit different, but affordable luxury. So we started selling champagne at $55 a bottle to start getting people, well, if people can't come and drink at the outlets, well, why don't we give them the opportunity to perhaps drink at home? So it's just rethinking and rejigging opportunities to give everybody a chance, because look, as we've heard from the other panelists, everybody's affected, and most people not in a positive way. There are other businesses that have flourished. This has actually been, they're breaking revenue records. Hospitality industry, it's a little bit different for us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about remaining relevant and resilient. Senthil, what are some of the key challenges you face in these uncertain times?
Oh, the biggest challenge for us, I think, is we've never had so many people in one place at any one time. Because that's not our business. Our business is to move people, and so now, what do you do with them? How do you engage them? We had from the beginning know that this is going to be a big storm, but this is not the first storm that we have encountered. So from the beginning, the leadership felt that we need to keep everyone safe. We need to keep everyone intact. But then how do you keep them engaged? And I think that was the biggest challenge for us. How to get, because it's also a very dynamic situation. It still continues to be a dynamic situation. So getting the right message in a timely manner and making sure that everyone was in the same on board with us with where we are going and how we are going to get there. I think that was the biggest challenge because we have never done this level of engagement in such a short time, and ensuring that the people hear us and the people have an opportunity to engage us back, because everyone's concerns were different, were so diverse, and so yeah, I think that was to me a new skill that I had to learn. To talk to as many people, and that was important. That was the other thing, right? It was important for us to get there, but we have never done this before, not at this level, not at this pace. And having said all that, we also had to deal with our own personal challenges. So I think initially we all put on a very strong front, but eventually we realized that we need to prepare ourselves first before we go out there and engage our people. So I think these were the learning journeys for me, how I have to first teach myself what do I want out of this, and then get people to get on board with me.
Yeah, it always starts with the self, doesn't it? And then with what's happened with remote working, the boundaries just sort of blurred. And, there's only that's a very good point. There's only a certain shield that you can put, and we're human too. And that's when I guess empathy could come in. And I'd like to speak a little bit about that in a bit. Emmanuel, what were some of the challenges that you faced, given that the large organization as well and the mammoth sheer strength of the team and people that you had to deal with?
Was understanding what it was that the rules were to any one given time. Let's use as an example reservations. Once reservations at restaurants and could start happening again, the limitation was 5 guests, and I'm sure we all remember that. But then interpreting all of the rules around that, and then putting that in a way that A, our colleagues could understand, and then B, that we were then communicating that correctly and succinctly to our customers, because we didn't want to get anybody into trouble. Not the business, not the colleagues, and not the customers. So understanding to quite literally to the T what it was that was the right thing to do and what it was the wrong thing to do, how to interpret it, and then how to communicate that. Ensuring everybody's safety was paramount for us. And it's still to this day is critical for us to make sure that happens. And we take a great level of pride in making sure that our interpretation is the right interpretation. If we have any questions, we go back to the bodies that then can qualify what exactly it is that we need to look at and make sure is correct.
And how have you grown from this? I'm sure it's not over. It's far from over. But how have you and your team grown from this?
How have we grown? We have grown because we have now seen how quickly we can change and adapt, and not just to what the rules are, which is by governance, but also what customers want. One of the greatest growths that we've seen, believe it or not, is afternoon tea. Afternoon tea has exploded. The want for afternoon tea has exploded. So we're getting extra afternoon tea stands. Our pastry sections are as busy as ever. We now have opened up not just Sky in the Swissotel and Antidote in the Fairmont, but now Prego also does afternoon tea. So afternoon tea has been something that is one of the learnings that we've sort of come across because of what's happened as an accident. Afternoon tea has now become a very important opportunity for customers to say, look, we want something a little bit different because we can't go out super late at night.
Rachel, as a founder of Love Bonito, a co-founder, and as a leader, where does your focus lies, and how has your role evolved through this year?
So I think for me, Love Bonito is unofficially 14 years old and officially 11 years old. So having, built the business since day one together with my co-founders and team, I think what's most important, at different stages for me of the business, I've learned is also to get the right people on board with me to build this together. I think over the years, from when we first started, as founders, right, we did everything, every aspect of the business ourselves, to slowly building teams, getting people smarter than us in different roles, in different disciplines and different roles, to run the business with us. And for us, and for me as a founder, to be able to know where I can really move the needle in the business, and to also really focus on my strengths and key areas in the business. So I think for me, it's been a really fulfilling journey and a lot of lessons, a lot of mistakes. I think, for me, learned a great deal also about hiring, and the right people at the right time is key as well. But I think moving forward as well, I think what last year really taught us is really the importance of communication, over communication, especially in a time where, most of us are still working remotely. And last year, there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of, especially with the internal teams, right? They don't know what to expect. They don't know what we as leaders are thinking and what our strategies are for the company. So for me, what I've learned is also really the importance of over communicating, of accountability. I think people are not really looking so much for answers as they are looking for, assurance, just being there and listening to their leaders, what they're thinking, what we're going through. So one example is, we used to have town hall once every month, a town hall session with the entire organization. But since last year, we have moved it to, once a week, where we would just rally and gather everyone on Zoom to just, even if it's 20 minutes, right, to just talk about, where our head is at, what we're thinking about, what are some of the plans. And for example, when the retail stores closed for a prolonged period, we also wanted to be accountable to the teams on, how were we thinking about our retail staff colleagues, what were we going to do with them, things like that. So I think for me, I realized that keeping the team close, especially when the team grows bigger and when the team grows physically apart in terms of remote working, I think is super, super key.
Yeah, that's good. People first. It's very inspiring. Rachel, let's stay with you. You once said in an interview, experiences are not to be replaced. Customers crave for interaction, a meaningful connection. And I absolutely love that. So in a city like Singapore, where retail experiences are highly sought after and it's also highly competitive, how does Love Bonito design its retail spaces and experiences? And how do you move your customer and keep them coming back into your store physically and digitally?
Yeah, great question. I think this is something that's very close to my heart. I think Right, a lot of people say that retail is dead, right? But for me, I do not believe that retail is dead. I think that traditional retail is dead in a sense where, traditionally people or retail stores will set up to just come in, purchase and go. But in a day and age where people can literally browse and purchase anything on their mobile phones, any time of the day and night, I think you really need to give people a good enough reason to come all the way down to your stores to shop with you. So for us in Love Bonito, it boils down to how we train the service team to provide that interaction and connection with our customers that maybe they cannot get when they shop online with us or anywhere else. I think it's also how we create the space of our stores. For us, it's not just about filling every inch of the retail floor with racks of clothing and products. For us, it's also meaningfully designing it to also create different spaces in the store for people to interact, whether is it with the brand or with other customers and the community as well. So I think for us, especially now when, people are really craving for that connection with a brand. I think for us, how we view the retail space and the retail floor is really also about bringing the community together and giving them that extra touch point that is very important for them to get to know the brand and themselves through the products.
Yeah. You also shared once with me in a chat earlier about supply and demand challenges, talking to your customers, protecting your people, as you said, over communicating was key in managing the time last year, cash reserves, pivoting online. So in times of change and the pace that the world is at right now, what does it reveal about you?
What does it reveal about me? Well, to be honest, I think last year reviewed, this entire journey, I think entrepreneurship or even the leadership journey that we're all on confronts the best and worst of ourselves, right? And I think it really revealed to me, about, to be honest, how the entire organization and, well, if it's individually, I think, like for me, we were able to find, like my fellow panelists were saying also, opportunities to hone in on. And I think that's really important as a leader of an organization to be able to spot. It's almost like, even in a crisis, how can you see it as half cup full and still find opportunities through it all? And I think because of that, you are able to really build momentum. And because of that, you're also able to really spur the team on and encourage the team in times of uncertainty. So for us, for example, through the COVID period, for example, workwear took up such a huge portion of our assortment, right? Or almost 50% of our assortment. But because of the pandemic, as we know, all of us, if not, all of us were working from home. Most of us were working from home. So how is it that, as in Love Bonito, how can we ensure that we are not tone deaf in just, pushing out workwear pieces to our customers, but also ensuring that, hey, during this time, we need to be able to also speak to the customers' lifestyles changes as well. So we were very thankful that we had a very timely launch, an initiative of creating a new line in Love Bonito called Loungewear, where it's all about, great materials, comfortable materials, and designs that we can wear at home comfortably. And that was launched very timely, in a very timely manner, and also really spoke to what our consumers were going through during that period. So I think it's also examples like this, how as leaders, it's really important to be able to, through the darkness and through the hole that I felt like I was in, to be able to still find spots of opportunities.
Yeah, with all these changes that you had to implement and go through, Rachel, what are you committing to now to your teams? You manage a 250 strong team and your customers during this time of crisis.
Yeah, I think for us, it's to be authentic, to be accountable, like I said earlier. I think one thing that, we have continued doing since COVID period was also to be able to come out to say, look, hey, we don't know the answer, but this is how we're thinking about it. And we are as unsure and lost as you are, but this is what we plan to do. It might change, the plan might change next week or next month, but what we can assure you is that, you will hear it from us first. So I think that's something that's very important that we realize that has kept also the team together, has kept them united, and has kept them, worrying a lot less. And they are able to better focus on their work as well. I think especially with last year, there was so much uncertainty, throughout the world, not just for us as well. So I think that's something that as leaders, how can we constantly communicate, constantly assure our internal teams and external community.
Yeah, which is a great question, which is a great segue to my question next to Senthil, actually, around value systems. We know that design that we're discussing right now is not just aesthetic, it's also about the posture. So in the training that you do now, Senthil, is empathy a reigning value in your approach to designing services and businesses?
Great question, because absolutely. I think, when we talk about just generally transferable skills, sounds like a very simple thing. You teach someone how to use a tool and you have transferred that skill. Not necessarily so. You have to understand the environment in which they are working in, the culture in which the team works. And I think these are the two big factors that we need to understand when it comes to training. In general, I think what we observe is that we do have a sort of a national work culture, but we have a much more stronger organizational culture that a lot of leaders out there, try and develop in the organizations. And I think understanding that as a external party to go in there and share, I think is a very effective way of approaching this. And we have had fairly reasonable success with that approach. And I think that is something that we've had in the past in the airline also, because we were a multi-cultural, multinational cauldron of people, And so we had to have that to have any kind of effectiveness of anything that we do. Because the expectation on us is wherever a person walks on board our flight to expect the same level of standard. So, but the delivery is by different cultures, different people. And so understanding that was always been in our training DNA. But to actually go outside of where we do what we do and actually do that, I think we really had to be open. So empathy, spot on. No empathy, you're not going to get much of a buy-in. And the buy-in was the second thing, because a lot of things that we did, that I do in training, I like to think that I have to get the buy-in from the people that I'm trying to train or trying to share. And if I get the buy-in, the learning becomes very natural. But the minute the buy-in is not there, then the training becomes very rudimentary. So I think a lot of it was what we were already doing. But it's just that now when we go out there, we have to learn and understand the culture and the experience also. We have to respect the experience of the people out there. So empathy for sure, Juliana. I think it is a key ingredient.
Fantastic. Wow, you really had to go out of the box. And yeah, interesting to say that you had to go out and train what is an external audience now, whilst you used to do that for the internal brand. Yeah. Emmanuel, people, your guests and your team are at the center of the hospitality industry. So what are some of the challenges you face in the needs of your guests? Are they being challenged by digital, more contactless modes of contact? And do you apply empathy also in the service to contour your business now?
Yeah, so again, understanding what it is that we face with what is deemed, and I'm somebody who hates using sort of business buzzwords, but I've got to here, sort of the new normal. I'm going to try to not say any more business buzzwords for the rest of this discussion, by the way. So what we've noticed is that there are some people that actually really like to hold a menu and touch a menu and flick through a wine list. And we've noticed that there are now problems with some people and them using their mobile phone for QR codes, and they say, oh, I can't actually use this phone for a QR code. My business won't allow me to. Can I check in manually? Or there are people like me who are too old to understand technology and sort of stumble around and don't really know QR codes and what to scan and what to do, or people that have just not recharged their mobile phone. So there's a whole raft of things that we've had to adapt our business for our customers as well. We've had to put sanitizer, usable sanitizer everywhere. Yeah, I can still got the smell of it on my fingers because I'm constantly putting it on my hands. And as are all of my colleagues. And new steps that we've had to do back and front of house so that whole point of making sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can to stay on top of what it is our colleagues need for the business, but also what our customers are wanting as well. So we've now started printing physical menus to give to guests so they can get back to a little bit more of, what things used to be like in the old days, 18 months ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. Senthil, in the aviation industry where we're seeing contactless ticketing, automated doors, check-ins, what are some of the ways in which the aviation industry is designing new and improved experiences for customers? Same like hospitality. I'd love to hear what you're doing in the aviation industry for that.
No,
the evolving of customers.
I was smiling when Emmanuel was saying about these jargons, because I have one that I like to patent. It's called the next normal. Take a stab in the dark. What's the next normal? No one knows. But you asked about how do we do what we used to do and continue to do it in the future. I think the first question is that we need to understand two things about the people that are our customers. What is the value and what is the experience? If you continue to drive that value and continue to build that experience, it doesn't matter what you do. So perhaps that is the genesis of whatever that you want to call the new norm. Right. So, and this is, I guess, if you take it from that perspective, we look at how we can mobilize the people, mobilize what you would need. And quite a lot of that also revolves around technology. And the other challenge which we have to manage and we have to fulfill is because aviation is a very regulated industry. So we also have a lot of regulations that we need to revisit with the relevant people to make them understand how we can fulfill, expectations as well as regulations. But I go back to value and experience. If the value and experience is still, something that the customer is happy about, then, that's your definition of the new norm.
Yeah, I think we can all relate with that, given the industries that the three of you are in. Experience is key. Value is key to the people. It's a business. Staying with you, Senthil. So Singapore Airlines is known internationally, being benchmarked, of course, for exceptional standards of service. And we all know that. You've put Singapore on the map, so thank you very much. We have a lot to learn from you. Now that you're training in the Singapore Airlines Academy, which offer customer service and crisis management courses to now industries such as medical care, retail, food, beverage, and construction. You touched a little bit about transfer knowledge and skills. What are your thoughts and convictions around this during these times? You think this is something that will stay?
Absolutely. I am completely convinced on this cause. because what has put Singapore Airlines on the map are some of those skills that we have continued to build and develop on. And there are many reasons why we have taken this path, and some are not the most pleasant of experiences that we've had. And we feel very, very strongly and very passionately that this is not, you don't need to learn lessons by mistakes. You can learn lessons from people who have done this and who do this well. And that's where the whole idea of the Academy is. There are some things that we know that we do well, and it holds us in good stead. And that's what we bring to other industries, And there are many industries out there. Particularly, I like to talk about healthcare because there are many parallels between healthcare and aviation. Many people work in teams. Mistakes can cost lives. Very regulated industries. And there is a public expectation in healthcare as well as in aviation. So based on just these parallels, the people skill sets can't be that far off. And that is where we drive our message, what is it that we can share with these people? Because and there are many industries of similar nature where they face very heavy regulations, and the public expectations is always heavy on them to deliver. So I think this is the fundamental of how we felt that we have an opportunity here. You see, you talked about customer service. Likewise, you have heard many stories of how in the last 1 year, Singapore Airlines has continued to engage with customers, even though we know, the airline is hardly flying 25% of our regular schedules. So again, something one of the panel member mentioned about how do you engage your customer in an evolving environment that you really have no control about. So I think that's the big learning journey for us, right? And that's the lessons that we share. So that's what I would say that has been our experience.
So true, Senthil. Emmanuel, hospitality is also looking into ways of reactivating bookings through small mementos or digital touch points at reception spaces. It has been proven that there is about a 3% retention rate in small touches with your guests. So how has the design of service touch points and spaces changed to suit the pulse of the experience of guests? Where are they spending their money?
It's interesting to see the data on what guests now consider to be important when they come to a hotel or when they go to a restaurant, and their tolerance now for things that were abnormal when we started introducing everything to now levels of normality. There are a lot of restaurants now to make themselves economically feasible. They have to have a first sitting and a second sitting. So there are some customers that are okay with that, other customers that are not so okay with that. But there are more people now that are okay with that time dining than before, because they get that there are restrictions and everything's, all the alcohol's got to be off tables by 10:30. So people's tolerance levels have now, for some things, have diminished. So, have increased. For other things, people's tolerance levels, as we said before, about hygiene and potential contamination, their tolerance levels have moved considerably, and if there is a concern, they will even ask our colleagues or myself, because I'm very active throughout all of the outlets. Is that right? can we do that? What is the ruling on whatever the question may be in relation to space, distancing, how many people can come in at any given time, functions and events, or restaurants? So the data that we're getting back from our guests is actually changing and changing what it is that we're doing regularly. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, of course it does. Let's look at looking ahead before we get into Q&A. We have some interesting questions that have just come. I'd like to hear from you, Rachel. What should businesses prioritize and emphasize on redesigning workspaces and retail spaces from all the learnings we've heard today? What do you think your priorities will be?
Yeah. I think I completely agree also with what Senthil said earlier about empathy. I think as leaders, it's very important that, we come from a place of empathy, especially to help us craft, the next normals policies as well for our staff. I think personally, for our team members, right, and our staff, they are going through exceptional amount of stress as well, right, for their families and themselves. And I think for us to have that flexibility and when we cater to them, especially during this time, because of this entire situation, a lot of families, for example, need to be home with their kids. They can't get the help that they need to take care of their kids and things like that. Those are just some examples. But so I think for me, the priority is to take care of our team members' needs and to be able to have that level of empathy to understand what they're going through and be flexible with how we cater to them, especially during this period and especially moving forward as well.
Great. Senthil, what would be priority for you moving forward?
My people.
Nice. You're all saying it's
what is their experience doing what they do? And what is the value they feel towards the organization that they drive? I think that will be my next success.
What about you? Sorry.
Because I think, what I wanted to say was that if we believe our success lies in our people, then what we should be working towards will be their experience and what is the value they feel. Because we chose them, we selected them, we trained them, we put them in places that we think they will do well. So if they are successful, then you're successful. So that's how I feel.
That's brilliant. I have, there are some questions opening. Thank you very much for sharing, but these are exciting questions, so I'm going to start asking. The first question from the floor: with everything moving digital, were there new opportunities given to existing staff, since we're speaking about people? If yes, how did your employees take it, having to experience a shift in their job scope? I think this question would be for Senthil and then Rachel.
Okay. What was interesting that I personally experienced before the pandemic and when things started going south for us was the resilience of people in realizing what was expected out of them. And I think that was something that I honestly underestimated before the pandemic. And this was, it truly was that people felt a sense of belonging to the organization, that they were willing to do stuff, And so when we had to pretty much shut down our offices during the circuit breaker and things like that, there were people that were willing to, make sacrifices to make that happen. And I think that is where our digital so-called transformation happened in terms of how we function. There will always be people who will lag in adopting this sort of new practices. But I think, again, go back to the experience. If the experience is because of fear, because they are afraid that they might not do so well, then I think addressing those fear changes their experience and then drives that value. So for me, how you get people on board in whatever technology that might come our way as the next norm is look at the experience that the people are having with it, and that will drive what your goals are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Rachel, the same question has been posed to you around your employees and how they experience in the shift of the job and how you're managing that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think for us, I think we are lucky in a sense where, Love Bonito started digitally native. So about a good, 60-65% of our business comes from online. So it's a space that we're very familiar with. That being said, we also have a significant number of stores beyond just Singapore, right? In Singapore alone, we have 5 stores. We have stores in Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, Hong Kong, that was a pop-up store in Hong Kong, but it was also during the time where COVID happened. So for us, with the stores having the stores closed for a prolonged period of time, we also needed to keep the retail team together and rearrange, some of their job scopes to coming out to help, for example, in the warehouse team or even in the customer experience team. So I think one thing for us is you realize that actually all of us are very adaptable if we really want to. And it's just really a switch in mindset that we all need. I think for me also personally, previously I would have never dreamt that it's possible to hold a board meeting at home, and or have the board meeting digitally and things like that. But it happens, and you make do, and you make the best out of it, and you embrace it. I think little things like that we also try to ensure that for our retail team during that time, how can we also send those who are interested for skills training, skills future that the government does provide some funding for as well. So little things like that have been helpful, especially knowing that while we do not know how long it would last then, we knew that it wasn't going to be permanent. So I think that's something that we kept very close communication along the way with our retail teams as well.
I have another question for Senthil. And the one just here. How sustainability is the new initiative with Singapore Airlines Academy when borders open again and flight schedules normalize and regain business? Will this project still be a priority? Ooh, interesting question.
When life gives you a lemon, you make lemonade.
Amen.
And when life gives you apples, you make apple juice. And the resilience and the versatility of your staff will help you do that. I cannot say what will the future hold, what's the next storm going to come our way. But I think what we need to understand is that we need to be progressive in what we think we can do. And I think if we look at a lot of the very long withstanding businesses or ideas that are out there, they've never really stayed at version 1. They've always reinvented themselves, and they've always driven the value and the experience they want to give to their customers. So I think right now, we feel the value that we can share with other industry is through the academy. I certainly feel that this is something we can continue to do and develop as we go based on our industry. But again, what is the next storm? Someone predict, and I'll tell you what we'll do. Right. So I think that we need to be nimble in that manner, in that thinking, and not be fixed that if this is what you're going to do now, what are you going to do tomorrow? No, I will change my mind tomorrow if I need to, and I'm ready for that. And I think that's the approach that I have.
That's great. Emmanuel, same question around sustainability for you as well. This piece, is the organization going to revisit it, or has it always been parallel, still in the making during the crisis? How will you address this?
So sustainability has been a very important part of what it is that we've been doing. We have on the 5th floor of our hotel, in fact, where my office is, between the 2 hotels, we have an aquaponics farm where we fish for fish, funny enough. And we also have vegetables in a closed loop. Interestingly, we can't use any pesticides because the same water feeding the vegetables goes to the fish. So it's as organic can be. And we use this produce in all of our food and beverage outlets, including in-room dining. So we're the only aquaponics farm, I believe, in Singapore, at between the Swissotel and the Fairmont. And that is one of many things that we're doing, not just as a hotel complex at the Swissotel and the Fairmont, but also as a core, many things that we're looking at doing constantly to ensure also the Singapore objective of 2030, and also the global objective of being a better, more responsible global company, and also sort of on the micro local business.
Rachel, a question for you. You speak of many interesting pivots your team in Singapore has had to undergo. Are you applying any of these strategies across the teams in other cities as well? Are the challenges faced by your Singapore employee base very similar across your teams in other cities?
Yeah. I do think the principle behind the pivots are the same, right? How we can relook. I think primarily with the pivots, we are driven primarily by our customers, what they're going through, how they're feeling as well. And so especially when it comes to different countries, right? They have different situations when it comes to COVID. Singapore, we're very lucky, to be honest, we are in a little bit of a better space where, for example, previously in Malaysia, Indonesia, there have been constant, lockdowns and through many periods, and there's a lot more uncertainty even now than what we are experiencing in Singapore. So for us, I think we use some of the key principles of how we approach, how we pivot the Singapore office and how we look at for example, even product lines, exchanging product lines that do much better in Singapore. So for example, in Malaysia, workwear isn't doing as well still because a lot of them are still working from home, not going out, things like that. So we do a lot of transference of stocks and also giving them, and then for us, in HQ to also give them a lot more homeware, loungewear, which is doing a lot better for them as well. So I think little things like that, remaining very nimble to do some transference, switches as well. I think ultimately also when it comes to people, we also ensure that the teams, the local teams in the different countries also remain closely in contact with the management and the leaders for us to also keep a constant pulse of them and how they're doing, to check in personally, not just professionally. I think these key principles are something that we actually hold very dear to beyond just the Singapore office.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very insightful, Rachel. We have one last question, to all the panelists. Let me read this. Is there anything that you would have done differently in initiative efforts in trying to cope with the pandemic? Is there anything you would feel hopeful that you now feel comfortable to do more?
If I could do more, then I think I would have engaged more than I did. But I think I would have taken a more a long view on this than perhaps what I did initially. I think quite a lot of us thought this was going to be a couple of months. Maybe the summer comes along and everything will blow over. But just that. I wish I had taken a longer view that this is going to affect people and people's lives, and how do I say and do what I do now that is going to help them with that. Because I think one of the things that I felt that I could have done better was not to satisfy people for the week or the month in our communique. I wish I had that. We could have done that better.
Emmanuel, what about you? What would you have been hopeful to do differently?
I probably would. I would have invested more in, I suppose, more partnerships faster, and partnerships with Singapore Airlines, Love Bonito, with great businesses, where what we can do is we can say, get a little bit of their product with a little bit of our product. That I think that sharing is critical, and looking to synergistically work with other businesses, other people. And I should have set up an alcohol shop the moment this all started, because everybody was sitting at home going, "What's next?"
Yeah.
Right. So like, I see now more than anything the value of partnerships.
Indeed.
Good partnerships.
Yeah.
Indeed, Rachel. What about you? Let's you.
I think for me, and this is such a specific question to each of our businesses, right? So for me, I think looking back, one thing that I wish I would have done earlier and better, I think that sometimes, when things are going well and okay, you take for granted certain aspects. So for us, I think when COVID happened, we were hit very severely in our supply chain. And that was tough, because essentially when our supply chain was hit, it affected the way and how often we were able to launch new arrivals. And that in turn affected revenue for us as well. So we were pretty crippled by, and the dependence of our supply chain being rooted in primarily one region of the world. So I think before COVID, we had great plans to want to diversify beyond one region of the world to also perhaps Southeast Asia and things like that, but never really got the fire in the butt to do it, because we also didn't feel like, there isn't such a need. But wow, that was the first thing that I literally regretted the most when COVID happened. So yeah, it was a tough lesson, but it was a much needed lesson. So supply chain on my side, diversification of that.
That's great, Rachel. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to close this session. It's been quite a remarkable hour, very insightful, as we learn, as we redesign the way we work, and we're learning quickly that how design translate leadership to employees, and that it's very important and it matters in how we communicate in service, in your people, in your stakeholders, in your customers, what you prioritize, and how it shapes the way you run your business. There's a common thread that we've been hearing for the hour about people-centered design. It shows that putting people first makes business sense. Businesses are run by people, communicating, collaborating, creating. So it's important that they are heard, empowered, and they're given the tools to succeed and flourish. To be genuinely open and receptive about change as well, and being ready to improvise. Celebrate the spirit of continuous iteration, whether it's in your people, in tech, in your products. We have proven to ourselves that we can manage challenges on a scale that we never have thought before. And looking ahead, the three of you have given us this sense of hope. So thank you. Hope requires energy for change. And today, I'd like to thank you, Rachel, Senthil, and Emmanuel, for sharing your energy with your stories, your grit, and inspiring and spurring us on to keep going. There is always a silver lining in a crisis, as we say. I believe that we can, in some way, our experiences have shaped us to become more relevant and resilient than ever before. Businesses are designed by people, possible because of people, and are for people. The constant here is the human spirit, so let's not forget that. We're all in this together. And with that, I thank you.